Leafs talk. JD Bunkis, Sam McKee, Justin Bourne. The Leafs, they lose in, like, what do you want to call this? Embarrassing, pathetic, dismal, embarrassing fashion. Bruins up 3-1 in the series. Sammy, we got to start with you.
All right. So I'm thinking a lot because I had a lot of time what to say about when I was coming in here. And, doing this job, it changes your relationship with the team. All through my teens and 20s, you're a diehard fan. In your 30s, maybe it's getting a little older. Your relationship changes. And then doing this job, talking about them every day, become a little bit less of a fan. But still, like, at my core, I am a Toronto Maple Leaf fan. And I, wanted to lie to myself to believe in this group. But tonight may be the night that broke me. Tonight may be the night where I transitioned from fan to completely jaded and got nothing left. That was as tough. I don't know what to even, like, I'm broken by that. Those first two periods of hockey were amongst the most disgraceful things I've watched in my life as a sports fan. Like, even for these guys, that's as bleak as I can ever remember.
Is there an element for you of, like, it's almost better that it's so bad that you can let go? There's no ounce of you that's like, what could have been here? Like, and this is not a postmortem on the season, but everyone I've talked to is like ready to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sammy, I obviously echo your sentiments. It becomes more and more of a job, but then, coming into tonight, there's a Bob Cole tribute and it's beautiful. And I get extremely emotional watching it because, like any Canadian sports fan of any age, really, like, Bob Cole's voice means something to you. Mm-hmm. And the arena had energy in it. They're playing the Enter Sandman and they went with the cold open, Cuthbert Let It Breathe. Oh, yeah. And you just hear the arena and they are stomping loud to start it. And I'm like, hell yes, Toronto Maple Leafs. Let's go. Win a hockey game. Play with passion. Show up for these fans that you've stunk in front of 4 straight times in the Stanley Cup playoffs. 4 straight losses, now 5 straight losses at home with this core. Show up and do something magical tonight. Have this one be a memorable moment. And it was memorable for all the wrong reasons. And, Borny, to your point, like, I think that's the only real reprieve I have, is that there's just no way in hell after this that they can come back and do it the same. This isn't like Sheldon Keefe is fired and you're waiting for a guy to, Tavares' contract to come off the books. It's like, no. This is drastic. This might end up being scorched earth. I think you could see executives, coaches, and part of the core 4 removed from this franchise. Like, I know the series isn't over yet, but God, how could you ever feel like it's not after that?
Well, I think it's reasonable to have those thoughts, right? That's the next step here is, boy, you're one away from what next. But I think we should at least hang into the series for a second and ask the question, is there anything you can see? Is there anything from tonight or the way it's unfolded that you're like, God, it's been bad breaks, or there's a chance here for the Toronto Maple Leafs after that night?
But they didn't have to flood the middle of the ice for the first 2 periods, boys. Like, Leafs didn't get between the hash marks. Like, it's the same. If it looked any different than it has in years past in these games, and by the way, it's 6 straight losses on home ice now.
Sorry, 6.
Yeah, it's 6 straight losses on home ice now. I think that's the longest streak since 71-74. Thanks, Sportsnet Stats, for that. So that's a good one. Thanks for that one there, Sportsnet Stats. Like, it just, Borny, you can try to convince yourself of there being things that are going to turn around, but, like, they aren't getting any grade A chances. It just looks the same as every other big game looks for them. And I know they had moments last year where they get past the first round and you have to couch it with this stupid thing where they won 1 round and we're all like, well, they did that. It's like, well, that's meaningless. Meant nothing. And it's just all these games just look exactly the effing same. Every single one of them. And it's like, this team's better playoff built. This team's better playoff built. They added this snot. When the 4 guys who make it all that just don't do it, except for Marner, who scores the nicest goal of his career in the 3rd period, by the way. They just don't do it. You just don't have a chance. And it's like, finally, we're getting to the point where there's just no more tomorrow with this. And if they
where do you guys think they're better?
Well, no, if we look back on this and they come back in the win in 7 games in Boston, I'm happy to look like the biggest idiot on planet Earth. But that's not going to happen, boys. And I'm telling you right now, it's got to look different. So,
but like, where are they better? Because the core four was supposed to have a real impact. And like, I know Matthews is sick or whatever, and he has to leave the hockey game. He's not his normal self. Like, Marner scores that goal, sure, but it's after 2 of the worst periods he's played as a Leaf. Like, absolutely. When you got Paul Bissonnette on Twitter going at Mitch Marner that hard, like, it's bad, right? Like, you know that the play is horrible. And even like on the power play, right, that they give up the second goal on, it's a turnover by him that gets the entire thing started. Like, Nylander had a couple moments later in the game, I guess, where he kind of sort of got to the net, but for the most part, he was pretty absent. And Tavares is like Tavares looks like he's a 4th line player. He has 0 impact whatsoever on these games. And so for a team that's built around these 4 offensive guys, to feel them as little as you did tonight outside of Marner's goal, to me is just like, that's the bigger indictment of anything to me, Bourne.
Yeah. The one thing over the years that I had been like that you had to let breathe was that these guys are all so talented that there would be a year where they just popped off, where it broke for them and they were fantastic. And the advantage they had farther down the lineup, one of these 4th line guys is going to be, these 4 stars is going to be on the 3rd line, and they're going to expose the other team. You had to give it some time fairly to let all the excuses run their course. I think you can fairly say you've done that now.
Yeah.
We started our show, Kipper and Bourne, this year, talking about how it was the core 4, and then you're taping other parts onto it and going Bertuzzi and Domi, and like, this is the difference that we're going to tape onto it. But at the heart of it all, it doesn't matter what you tape on. You talk about grit or whatever. If the grit isn't in that group, the group who plays 23 minutes, it's not going to happen. So I have some sympathy that Matthews has been sick for a couple games. Marner's off a high ankle sprain. Willie hasn't played in 10 days. The timing for all this crap sucked. McMahon's out. It sucked. It's been really bad timing to get to this point where they are, but the excuses have all run out.
Yeah.
Well, here's the other thing too. And I just want to say about this. It's like, this is the way the team is built too, though, right? Is when you have this much salary cap allocation with these players, you do suffer an injury, and this is what happens. Like, your lineup is bereft of anybody else. Like, Vegas loses one of their top guys. You're not going to feel it the same way as Toronto's going to. And so, like, the idea of it being an excuse, it's there, right? Like, it's a partial
and they're valid, but it can't be every year that they're there.
Yeah. That's what I mean. But it's also, it's a part of what your team is. Like, you get an injury and you're going to be hurt more than any other team. That goes with the risk of the way that this thing is built. And so when you're talking about like proof of concept, right? This is a part of running those scenarios. Like, injuries happen in the Stanley Cup playoffs pretty famously, actually. Teams are not normally healthy come the end of this thing. And so if you're building it that way, like, it has to be a consideration, all of this, not just a blanket excuse of why things don't happen for you.
Yeah. I think mostly fans are now, I mean, this is the grim reality of this, and the stuff that the really dark thoughts that are going through my head, that, you think back to the start of what this was and the hope and, looking forward to this finally being the core that's going to put them over the top, that's going to give them the moments, like, God forbid, win Lord Stanley Cup. I just, it's not gonna, they're not the goer. It's not the guys.
How about this though, Sammy?
No, but like, it's just, it's not, they don't have it. Like, year after year, they consistently get outplayed in these massive games by lesser players. It's
but
just,
Sammy, you can't paint the 4 of them with the same brush, and we have, and I do it too. You're going to have to make a decision about, are there members of it that can be a part of the thing that gets over the top? And if so, who are they?
Maybe Matthews, but Matthews hasn't been very good in any big games either. Like, he missed, I don't know what he missed the 3rd period of the game tonight. I don't know if he was 6. I saw someone say maybe he tweaked his knee. The Sportsnet maybe showed him tweak. I don't know. I don't know what happened to him. Like, it's just, at some point here, like, you got to figure it out. And sure, maybe Matthews could be part of a team that goes on to win the cup if you make the right trades or whatever and you go. But, like, he's been brutal in big games when fully healthy. Marner's been brutal in big games when fully healthy. Tavares, he's getting old now, but he's been brutal in they all share it. They all do it. It's not just like I am painting them with on one brush. It's the least
for blame.
It's the least clutch group of guys ever.
Yeah, for blame, they all, I think, deserve the same brush, to be honest. Like,
Sure.
I know that Marner
for the past, not the future.
So Bourne, like, I totally know what you're saying. Like, right? It's pretty clear that Matthews isn't going anywhere. They just tendered Nylander a contract. Like, Tavares, you can't even, like, I would be trying to get as creative as possible. I think he 100% gets stripped to the sea, and you're trying everything you can to be like, can we eat some of this money to make somebody else interested? Like, I think it's actually at that point for me with him. Yeah. I think Marner is obviously he's the most clear candidate to be traded. I think he always kind of has been. He's probably someone
watching this series going, we could use a guy like that.
Yeah, buddy, though, this is, I think like to Sam's thing though, about giving them all the same blame, to come out in this game the same way and just not be able to put your stamp on it, to not play with any desperation, to be bitching at each other on the bench. And like, Nylander's telling Marner not to be like, what do you say? Stop crying. Like, and Marner's throwing a tantrum and throwing his mitts down, and Matthews is giving it to them. Like, this is kind of this is their leadership core. And this is part of why running it back all these years, like, Bourne, you said the thing about letting them run and giving it time to breathe. Yeah, I think that's fine. But also, this was the fear, right? That the collective trauma shows up in these moments. That the guys that have never done it as a group, when the going gets tough, like an evening like tonight where you fall down in a hockey game and you don't have any push, who do you believe in? I really thought, who steps up and talks in the dressing room after the second intermission, right? Like, you just played 2 horrific periods of hockey. Your season's on the line. You're down 3 goals. Which one of those guys do you think stood up and said something? Like, I have no idea to this day who it would be out of those 4 guys.
No idea. I truly don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
That video of him throwing his gloves, wearing like the A on his chest, getting chewed out by his teammates, it's just like, that's one of the hardest things you can ever watch. It's like, it feels like we're getting to the end of the road here with the way that he's talked about in this market, the way the fans feel about him. Like, it really does feel like we're heading towards something. It's the vitriol right now is the worst it's ever been, rightfully so. These games, like, it's just, you're playing Boston, they're stars. I mean, what does Marchand have? Does he have 9 points through the 4 games? He's killing every penalty. Like, Pasternak scored multiple goals. Jake DeBrusk, who always kills the Leafs, is scoring big goals. It's just like, you look across the other team versus what the Leafs leadership core is, and it's like, it's just, there's no comparison. There's absolutely no comparison.
You just, it's funny because you had Phil Kessel here and you watched him go be a third liner on a team that went to win a Stanley Cup. Hold on. And I'm saying, you have this epiphany that that's kind of always who he was, right? Like, maybe a good second liner, high-end second line guy. I know Kessel's a first line talent, but like on a Stanley Cup team, he's probably not the guy that's pulling the ox cart, And, you get to this point with the Leafs and you start looking at a guy like Marner and being like, he might win a cup, but it's probably in a Kessel role. Or, maybe Nylander's the same thing. He might win a cup, but he's probably not the guy. I can see Matthews as the guy, but that's probably the saddest realization when you have the young prospects and you watch them develop and you get to a point and you go, maybe they're a guy who can complement a winning team, but they're not the reason, the team wins.
Well, this is the thing to me is, the theory this year was you're going to spread the talent around, right? Nylander's got his own line, and Marner's got his own line, and Matthews got his own line, and only one of those lines has had consistently positive impact, and that was the Matthews line. Like, even tonight, he's sick. He has to leave the game. And I thought through the first 2 periods, for whatever it's worth, his group was the best, right? Like,
he had real Sophie's choice there. Holy
that's what I mean. Like, I don't even know what the real positive moments were, right? Like, it's not much, but it's a group now that, again, goes 0 for 3 tonight on the power play. They spread out the talent. They've had their opportunities. They've taped a bunch of different things together. And ultimately, like, this one was one where you got to own it as the group. And I don't think that there's really anything else to be said. So, Justin, I did want to ask you though specifically about this. Like, the Bruins are a good defensive team, right? Like, credit to the Bruins.
Yeah, second best in the league.
Yeah, they're really quality. We said it. They don't really make mistakes. They're disciplined. They're heavy. They break the puck out well. They kill cycle opportunities. Like, they do a lot of things really well. They murder the front of the net. Like, they do not give you home run, home plate opportunities easily without a big fight. But what are you seeing specifically from Toronto's offense? Like, their strategy, because it's really painful when you have this much talent and you can just have multiple periods where there is just like completely nothing, no push offensively from a team that's built on offense.
Well, I think you would look at the way the Leafs have failed in the past, and the Bruins have one thing going for them that allows them to play the way I'm going to talk about, which is their goaltending is so good. You trust nothing is going in from distance, so you can kind of sag off, and just kind of protect that house a little bit more and let the Leafs have the puck around the outside. And that's why all the numbers are going to look fine. The underlying numbers are going to be okay because the Leafs do have the puck as much as the Bruins and all that, but nothing is anywhere in tight. So coming through the neutral zone, I think Bieksa might have talked about it a little bit, but like sometimes you just got to get the puck past all that thickness and go forecheck, go north. It's a lack of accepting that you have to play simple hockey sometimes for these Leafs, where it's like, instead of regrouping, let's go forward. Instead of trying to dangle at the blue, we might have to chip it in. Let's get in on the forecheck. You kind of have to change the way offense is created in the playoffs. The Bruins have challenged them to get through the slog, and the Leafs have tried to regroup and get in there and do it pretty. It hasn't worked out, aside from the odd flare-up couple of Mitch Marner plays.
Yeah, but I mean, you want to give the Bruins credit, and I think they've been great defensively, and that's fine. But, just going back to my earlier point, it's not just the Bruins that have done this to them. It's like, it's like, Montreal did it to them in game 5, 6, and 7. The Lightning did it to them, like Columbus did it to them. Now the Bruins are doing it to them. They seem to be very easy to stop going to the middle of the ice because they just, listen, it takes a lot of fight. It takes a lot of, for a lack of a better term, it takes that dog in you to get to the middle of the ice. Mm-hmm. And that dog in you per 60 is not high on the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. So it feels like the Bruins are doing a great job, and I want to give them credit, but it's hard to give them credit when year after year, all these games look the same. So what you said is right, but every team does it to them.
Yeah. It's just so much perimeter play though.
And
you're right.
Scored so much last year from the outside because Vasilevsky was playing with a hurt back. He didn't make one save. How many goals did they flutter in from the blue line last year? Little tips in front of the net. Like it just, every goal they scored, it felt like big goal. Think about the one in overtime that Riley gets from outside. Think about Kerfoot's winner in game 4 is from the outside, just a flutter puck. It's just, it was a lot of hope plays last year too, but they went in because of a compromised goalie. So
it's just, it doesn't feel like it can ever sustain pressure either. Like
no, one and done.
There's such a one and done team. And the other part too is, to me, what I see oftentimes with the Stars, and this is probably more a byproduct of Nylander and Mitch Marner. Both guys are great at gaining the zone, and specifically in the regular season, they're great at gaining the zone, especially against lesser opponents and better matchups. But I think you've seen it in this series, especially with Mitch, like him trying to play with the puck around the blue line area when he enters it. It feels like the puck's never just like going in deep and they're starting a cycle. It's that he's playing up top and he's either making a rushed play and he has less time and space. And when he's had less time and space, like he has not been able to overcome it. And like, I hate pulling the small guy thing, but you really feel his lack of size in this series. Like, who doesn't? Every single time that a Bruin gets a body on him, the puck is going the other way.
Mm-hmm. No, there's no doubt about it. It is a significant factor in their inability to create offense. It's funny, like I do still, I felt going into this series that the Leafs are so much better offensively and their depth is so much better than the Bruins. JD, you asked where they're better. I think they're better in their bottom 6, and on probably, the Bruins bottom pair is no good either. I felt that going into the series, and it's like, God, if Matthews gets healthy, like you can talk me into a world. I don't think a ton separates these seasons. No. Listen, I'm not saying they're going to win the series. I hate that no one can say anything good about the Leafs when you're like, I've decided everything is bad now. Mm-hmm. They're not far off this Bruins team. It's just a matter of when you're looking for that little difference and you're asking those guys to be it over and over and they can't be it, you lose faith in the ability for what could very well be and what is right there for them. I just lose faith that it's able to happen.
So this is where it's like two things get to me, where it's like, this is why we get into intangibles talk and leadership talk and, X factor talk, because you're right. Like one of the most frustrating things about this series is if I really felt like the Boston Bruins were the Panthers, like if the Leafs were doing this against Florida, I'd be like, oh, okay. Like that team is just so built to beat them and they're better. And it's a bad break for you that you drew these guys and blah, blah, blah. You could at least come up with that. This Bruins team is not special. And it just feels like all the intangibles that they have are better. Like, Gretzky's on the panel telling a story about Brad Marchand going and meeting with all of the Boston rookies in year one to like rookie camp to teach them what it's like to be a Boston Bruin. You telling me like you think that's Mitch Marner? You think that's like Marner showing up to rookie camp going, this is what it means to be a Maple Leaf? What hell? Answer me this. What does it even mean to be a Maple Leaf? Like what does it mean to you guys to be a Maple Leaf? I can't pinpoint what it is other than regular season success, like you guys and contracts. Like that
means tea times, boys. That's what it means. It means early tea times.
And so it's just like the intangible stuff gets me, but then the other part of it is the coaching, which I think it's fair to now get into this, which is what did you guys make of that today? Like Bourne, are you seeing Keefe make adjustments? Yeah. Like we had to make one in the third because like the line juggling, but it's kind of strange that they start this game with two lines that had never played together before. You clearly have had a problem with your second line, kind of giving you much in this series to begin with. They go back to it. The power play goes back to kind of the same thing. What are you seeing with Keefe's impact on this? Because, you know, to my eye, it's not looking great.
No, I was torn on a couple things. One is like, you know, it's the first game Willie's back, and he has played with Holmberg and Yarncroc at times this year. That's, you know, that's not a brand new line. But so for me, it was like, let's just see how it looks for a little bit before you hit the panic button. Like, let these lines play and see how it plays out. Now, you get one period in, and Matthews looks like a shell of himself. The whole plan only works if Matthews drives a line, and he didn't look capable of that to me. So pretty early on, I think I texted you guys, I wanted to see 34 and 16 back together, 91 and 88. Like you just had to find some comfort, some chemistry for guys, and I didn't see that change come. Beyond that, man, you know, I think, Sam, you said on our show the other day, how much does coaching affect special teams? Or like, where is coaching?
Yeah, where does the question I asked you guys was, where on the list of things coaching can affect in a hockey game does penalty kill and power play rank?
And to me, it's like D-zone coverage one, and then those things are number two. Special teams like the most obvious thing. So if the special teams fails, it's coaching. Unfortunately, he's lost the ability to pass the buck on that one. It's gone on for too long.
Yeah, what is it now? 1 in 14 in the series?
Yeah, 1 for 14.
Yeah, 1 in 14 in their final power play of the game, where it's just desperate. They get no shots.
The first power play of the game, little twist of the knife to finish off a hopeless game. They're like, oh, maybe a little bit of hope from the power play. And they're like, oh, time to chop it to a square again, boys.
He also played Robertson over Dewar, which I made sense, but Robertson played his worst game as a Leaf in I don't know how long.
Yeah, it's hard for me to pin much on Robertson, but yeah, he was kind of dreadful tonight. He had a couple of those moments where it's the same thing that I mentioned with Mitch, where it's a big Bruin gets on him and it's oh, that's not your puck anymore. Like the
dudes aren't happy. The Paw Patrol is going to revolt.
Here's what I'll say about, like, it's so Toronto to get bent out of shape about Connor Dewar coming out of the lineup, but I did it today. To me, it's just not worth like the 7 awful minutes Nick Robertson was going to give you tonight over breaking up an effective fourth line.
Yeah,
like their
fourth line's been really good.
Their fourth line has been an identity line for them, and like at times been one of their more noticeable one throughout this series, where they get into the offensive zone, they're leaning on the Bruins fourth line, they're creating havoc. Like I think they got 1 goal. I mean, they did. Reeves turns one over tonight. It goes the other way. But these guys, Nyes is out there with the fourth line. They're all scrambled. It's a dog's breakfast in the defensive zone. Everyone kills Reeves, and rightfully so, for turning that puck over or whatever. But like, it just, I don't know why it was a simple thing. You take out Robertson, you put in Willie, and it just felt like a real galaxy brain take for a guy who's like searching for goals because he can't get it from his 4 guys. And he convinced himself that this guy is going to get one for him, and he barely touches the puck. So it's just like, well, why'd you break up your best identity line that actually was like working for you for that?
That's how I feel too. That's how I feel too.
To me, it was idiotic.
You had something. Yeah,
yes.
You had something.
Yeah,
they had an identity. They had an impact on this series, and like they were a line that was going. We talked about how the middle 6 really was like searching to find something. And Sam, I think you nailed it with the reason why Robertson is in that game is because Keefe was worried about the scoring from the other guys. Like, you're supposed to have enough offense on this team that you can have a kill group who, by the way, had again provided offense for you in the series, who actually had scored a goal. It is a tough look, though, that Reeves has given up 2 goals to start games in this series. Like, for a guy that we were talking about being in and out of the lineup, You know, that's 2 bobbles. And you saw the frustration on him because it's like, yeah, dude, you're playing 9 minutes and that can't be the impact that you have on the game is this horrible turnover that he has for the JVR. By the way, I thought Samsonov was bad on this goal too. Like he's way too open. Like there's just so much net there to be had. Like JVR could have poked that into 100 different, like it's a horrible turnover, but like dreadful goal. And I think if I'm going to give Keefe credit for one thing and one thing only, because I do not think that he coached a good hockey game, it's that he put Joe Wool in for the 3rd period because they're in desperation mode now. They need Wool to be the guy the rest of the series. And like, to me, it's the series isn't on Samsonov, but he didn't really help him. So yeah.
I just want to add the 2 cents to the Dewar Robertson thing. I liked it and I would have done it. I totally agree with you guys on the 4th line's been good. It's one of the only lines you can rely on, but I can easily see a scenario where they, you know, score a couple goals every game. We see it here in the summer. Robertson scores 30 next year. And we're looking back at the series going, he had to leave Connor Dewar in, you know, and couldn't put in this guy who's, you know, a legit goal scorer in the league and they couldn't get goals. What a galaxy brain move that is, you know. So
who's Robertson going to score 34 the San Diego Gulls?
Yeah.
I mean, he had 14 in 40 games this year, didn't he? Pretty good pace. So
I know.
Yeah, scratch and score definitely put in his garbage time goals against the New Jersey Devils this year. There's no doubt about that.
Hey, he scored the 9th goal against the San Jose Sharks. What an accomplishment.
With the 4th pick in the Utah expansion draft, the Yetis
they're not expanding. They're not expanding. They're this the team.
Right.
They're just the team.
I forgot. They're just a moving team. 48 cents for this. Sick of our antics, our anti-Robertson antics. Yeah, okay. But okay, let's move to the goaltender. Yeah, you guys agree it's obviously Wool for game 5. And
I agree. I like that move. It was like, why not here? Maybe wake them up, see what happens. Seems like they had a good start to the 3rd period. Maybe it inspired them a bit, but yeah, it was fine.
God, it just sucks. It's like I'm looking through all my notes and they're just all mean. They're just all mean about this team. Like I have nothing. I have literally just that one thing. Patient, beautiful goal from Marner. That's it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful goal.
That's absolutely it. Like the Bruins are just a tougher, better, more disciplined team. And I think that, you know, the sentiment that we echoed off the top of the show is just what everyone's feeling right now is like, I think there was anger through the first 2 periods. The 3rd is just like the apathy sets in. And now it's basically like, yeah, you're in a series, but you can fire up the offseason talk. Like it's offseason talk time.
I think, I mean, this is the take of the century coming up here, but game 5 will be telling. Game 5 and how it goes in terms of what you get from this team is like, I mean, they've told me a lot about themselves over these last 8 years, but I think they could do their final hypothesis, their final story that they're going to tell could be the game 5 and how they play it. Like, if they,
what do you think would change? Like, what do you guys reasonably think could change? Like,
I reasonably think that they're good players. Yeah, definitely. And I reasonably think that their best players can come around. Willie hadn't played in 10 days or whatever. He's fallen all over the ice. He actually started to look pretty good to me in that game. Marner gets a nice goal. Matthews gets healthy. Like those guys come back and put together a decent performance. It wouldn't be shocking the Bruins to beat the Bruins 3-2 in a hockey game. They're not suddenly a different team than they've been all year. So yeah, I think when I look at a lot of the teams that are down 3-1 or 3-0 in the playoffs, the Leafs are probably the one where you'd go, yeah, you could make some sense of them winning a hockey game and all of a sudden it being like, wait, if those guys are good, you could talk yourself into it. So look, do I think they're going to win the series? I don't anymore, but I do believe that there's a real chance. I am definitely the most optimistic of the 3 of us of their chances.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess I don't know. Like I see this quote from Sheldon Keefe that says, I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but you can question a lot of things tonight, but you can't question the effort. Maybe save that one. You got 2 or 3, maybe you got 1 or 2 games left as the coach of the Leafs, buddy. You can maybe give him one on the way out here. You can maybe tell him how you really feel one time, buddy. Like, holy smokes.
He feels that way. I don't know.
Well, guess what? You know what he can feel? He can be now feeling how he's 4-12 at home as the head coach in the playoffs of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like,
is that the number?
The guy with last change, the guy who gets to make the adjustments at home, is now 4-12 in his own building. Like, so maybe that, Sheldon. Maybe yeah, that's a tough stat. That's a tough stat to hang.
That'll send you packing.
Yeah. That's when they're giving you the exit meeting and you're like,
I already know.
Yeah. I saw the tweet. I saw the tweet. I saw the Leafs talk tweet. I know what's going on. Micro note from me. I feel like is worth throwing in here because we're bitching and dumping. This is now 3 straight playoffs where Timothy Liljegren has been scratched in the playoffs, and it's been for the likes of old third line or third pairing defenseman.
Brody was good.
Yeah.
Front row seat waving at JVR. Slides home. 6 start. Hates hockey. He's gonna retire. He's gonna quit. The hockey hater's gonna quit.
Yeah. Hockey hater. Yeah. I like when you're talking about trying to puzzle together this blue line next year or piece it together, it's even more complicated now because I don't what you're gonna bring him back. He's like, hey, maybe the 4th year will be the year you don't get scratched in the playoffs, kid. It's just
to me that if you're like talking about Treliving's biggest mistake, clearly number 1 is Klingberg, and I mean it doesn't matter because he didn't. But like the biggest mistake to me is trusting Liljegren. Is that like what part of their big plan was? Like they talked about it a bunch after the deadline. They're like, this is the year where we didn't bring in his replacement. This is the year where like we need him to take a step. This is the year where we're going to need him in the playoffs. We're going to use him in the playoffs. And it's like, this is the year they replace him with TJ Brody, who can't do anything. Like, it's like, this is it happened again. Right. So I think it's to me, they gave him the shot. They didn't replace him. And it's like this offseason, you're like, well, we tried, bud. But like enjoy Utah again.
So far down the list of people they're going to be thinking about replacing, they won't have time to before next season. They'll be like, whatever we owe, do it. We'll deal with that later.
Yeah, it's true. They have to
put
whole new offices into this place.
Yeah. We really are, but it's like we really are on the precipice of yet another year where you're like everything's on the table and something has to happen, and there's like a deep fear that I have that, there won't be enough change.
No way.
I'm just saying that I still live with that fear. Like I'm hopeful. That's why when you guys are talking about like the game 5 thing, if it's me, if I'm just honest, I would rather, if the scenario is the Leafs could come back and win the series, duh. But if it's me, like, I don't want to have the fake
good
comeback.
Push.
I don't want the fake comeback that tricks the eyes and then they go doing what Bourne just said, where he's like, well, Nylander didn't come back in the games, and then Matthews was sick, and Mitch was dealing with the ankle, and we just feel like if we can just do this one more, it's like, please no, like we're begging you, put us out of our misery for the love of God.
It's going to be Blair, Barker, and Bourne if that's the case. I can't do another year Leafs like this.
Like real Kipper and Bourne, but exclusively the National Hour.
Correct.
I don't know what I'm going to do on my podcast. Like, because I got Jays and Raptors and Leafs next year. It's like, okay, so which of you losers is going to let me do any type of positive content?
At least give us some access if they're bad enough.
At least the Leafs will be like decent again. Like at least they're going to be probably make the playoffs next year again. So we'll have like the whole year where we get to be like, maybe this is the year it's different. Yeah. and then we do at least talk after game 5. We're like, I'm rude.
But it really is it. I think though, from the Leafs are never going to be poor, right? Like business is booming. They're doing just fine. I don't think that they're worried about, inflation like the rest of us, like they're not worried about how much bananas cost. They're like, we don't know what bananas cost. We don't know what milk costs.
That's from Arrested Development. Oh, how much is a banana? $10?
Yeah. That's what I mean. They're completely unaware of these costs. That being said, I think they really are at a dangerous point where it's no longer frustration. It's true apathy that's setting in here with this fan base. Like it is the booing that you heard tonight, the frustration of people that pay this crazy amount of money to go to these hockey games, that buy 1 million Maple Leaf sweaters every single year, that litter the grounds around the arena for these games to watch it on the Jumbotron, the people that tune in for these games. Like, I know, Sammy, like there's a part of this that you say about the whole, this one broke me and this one changed me. I kind of laugh because I've gotten that text from multiple friends tonight, but I texted all of them back the same thing, which was the amount of times I've gotten this text from you. Like, I wish I could throw it up in like a collage, right? The amount of I'm done with this team versus the first time they score a big goal and win a playoff game.
No, this is different.
Yeah. You sound like the Leafs GM.
Yeah,
or president, I should say.
Yeah, but the one thing for me is like, I genuinely don't think you can, like, fans are not going to put up with it this time around. Like, they're just not. They've seen what happened with the Blue Jays, where they were like, we're running it back. And the Raptors that were like, we're running it back. And the Leafs trying to do the run. It's just like, no, this is now disaster for all three of you doing the same problem. If you've let it breathe too long, and now you gotta cut off the oxygen.
And now Mitch's no move clause kicked in. Good luck.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
well, that's going to be.
Here's the thing to me, like, there's of all the most aware of these guys, like Willie clearly does not think about anything. Matthews is like just a stud. He's above it. I don't think he really care about it. Tavares, he doesn't get Twitter on his Kale iPhone, so I don't think he really cares. But Marner knows. Marner knows. He is the most hyper aware. Like, is it above him wanting the hell out of here? Like,
hey, who do you guys think hates Tavares more, Toronto fans or Islanders fans?
It's Islanders fans.
It is.
All he did here was underachieve a bit.
All he did here was all night long be like, here's another soft wrister your way, Mr. Swayman. Here's a stat for you, buddy. Oh. Yeah. Hey, let me softly send one over you. Like, it's like, was he trying to warm him up? Like, was he trying to get him to feel hot about himself?
Juicing his Corsi. He's looking for the underlying numbers.
Yeah, like, it's just he's not. You know what I thought about them tonight is the famous Sheldon Keefe quote: "You're soft and purposeless."
Yeah,
like that was it. Just all night long, that entire group just soft and purposeless. Anyways, subscribe to this podcast, leave 5 stars, hit the thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching. Reach out anytime. You can always vent the frustration in the comments. We always appreciate that. Yeah, we've got our other shows on Monday. Game 5. Like, I really want to do predictions, but yeah, you think the Leafs play another home game? Was that the last home game of the Core 4?
I'll be the guy who says they win one.
Yeah.
No way. I will be betting heavily on the Boston Bruins on Game 5. Maybe minus a goal and a half. Like, I feel like we're in 1-2-3 Cabo here. Like, I really do.
I think there's a little bit of that too.
I get the sense that this could get really ugly. Like, they lose bad and it gets bad and we're really bad.
Like I kind of think they win or lose by 4. Like, it's one or the other.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I get the same feeling Sam has, especially since, like, the bitching you saw on the bench and the frustration and, like, the amount of finger pointing internally that there's probably got to be with the group right now. The fact that Nylander's not feeling great, Matthews isn't feeling great, Marner's probably not feeling great, right? Like, they're probably going, yeah, we're good. We're good here. We like golf and we like Muskoka, and those two things are about to have in full force.
24 and sunny tomorrow. Marner's gonna walk outside the house like, it's time, baby. Let's go. It's time to hit the lanes.
Matthew's got that compound in Arizona.
You guys are Leafs talk.
Yeah. What do you mean? Like, what?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's just so much hate for the very guys who run the team.
Oh yeah.
Yes, the most amount of hate. One of my favorite things on Instagram right now is people that just write hate from wherever. It's like, they'll be like, hate from Croatia, hate from Africa. It's like, I fully endorse that right now. We're just like, if you're trying to do the positive stuff about these guys right now after all this, like, and again, if you could have just gone out there tonight and given an honest effort and really grinded and felt like it was desperate and, put your balls on the line, let them hang, then I think people would respect. That's the thing about this market, dude, is people can say how reactionary Leaf fans are and how, homers and complain about the refs and quiet in the 100. Like, there's obviously a million ways to target the fan base, but I really do believe there's one thing this fan base knows. It's guys who give a shit. Like, they have a great give a shit detector here. Like, and if we don't think you do, then we're not in on you. Like, we're just not. And tonight there was 0. It was a hard, like, the old give a shit meter was on the hard 0, never tipping up the other way. And so, yeah, maybe a little bit more of that, and then you won't get so much hate.
I'll see if AWS will let me run that as a advanced stat before next game.
Listen, I could run that stat. Tobacco could run that stat.
I got one positive thought before we leave. Okay, I actually have drum up a positive thought.
Okay, cool.
Just last year, this very team with these very men blew a 3-1 series lead to the Florida Panthers, who were a way worse team than them for the most of the year. They know they were up 3-1. No one there feels comfortable, right? In Boston, they're like, there's no way. No, I can't even convince myself of that. They're all like, this is absolutely over. But last year, this team blew a 3-1 lead. So maybe history repeats itself. And the Leafs flipped. I can't.
Couldn't do it. You tried. You got so
I tried my best. I can't get there, boys. I tried.
Just terrible.
Thanks.
Just terrible stuff.
That's fun.
Anyways,
I needed that.
Truly rancid content.
Anything from the rest of you guys?
Nothing.
No,
I'm gonna go have
Yes.
I'm gonna go watch cold beverage and watch my favorite hockey team, the Vegas Golden Knights, full of studs. My favorite
Saturday
team.
night on Bob Cole night. That was the most disappointing evening I can remember watching.
I know.
Yeah.
Just go out there and like, how? Like, that's the kind of stuff too where I'm going, oh, look at all that hockey nostalgia. Doesn't that make you? Don't you see? Sidney Crosby talking about Bob Cole
lives on. People remember you, and
yeah,
you were a boat.
Yeah, like legacies are a thing, and it's on the Jumbotron in Toronto, the mecca of the sport, and you guys are like, huh?
Hope it works out.
Yeah. Let's put a stick out, see if that'll work. That'll just work.
Maybe a soft wrister from 1 foot inside the blue line will get it done.
Yeah. No, Bob Cole was always called another soft wrister. Baby. Yeah, more soft wristers like that's anyway.
End this misery, will you?
End the misery. Anyway, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis, at JT Bourne, at Sammy McKee. Again, hit the thumbs up, follow the show. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for everybody for listening. We'll see you on Tuesday night.